Who on earth would try and kill their tenants? The French, of course. No, I'm joking, but not really. Better than food, man. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Better Than Food Book Reviews. I'm your host, Clifford Lee Sargent. Great to see you as always. Hope you're doing well. Get that coffee. Today's episode is brought to you by the Ridge Wallet. These things are awesome. They are light, sleek, industrial. It doesn't fold or awkwardly bulge in your back pocket, and it has seriously changed up my whole pocket situation and freed up some much needed space. It's like, why have we moved from large flip phones to smartphones, but we still carry the same wallet? They're not much bigger than your credit card, and yet they're so strong and sturdy. It's designed to easily fit into your front pocket, so your spine's not going to get all warped. They can pair well with your book. It's very easy to use, holds up to 12 cards, plus room for cash on the back. There's over 30 colors and styles to choose from, including my go-to, which is the matte black titanium, plus the incredible looking burnt titanium. It's got a real cyberpunk dystopian vibe, right? I feel if you're a fan of Mad Max or Blade Runner, this is definitely going to be up your alley. It's a very cool utilitarian design, very minimalist. It also has RFID blocking technology, which protects you from digital pickpockets. It's definitely a plus for me. The durable material means the wallet comes with a lifetime warranty. You could buy this one wallet and carry it for life. You're literally never going to need another wallet again. This is the last one you'll need to buy. If this wasn't enough to win you over yet, check out their 30,000 five-star reviews. In fact, the Ridge team is so confident that you'll like it, you can test drive it for 45 days. You can send it back for a full refund if you don't love it. Get 10% off today with free worldwide shipping and returns by going to ridge.com/betterthanfood and using the discount code betterthanfood. Link below. Thanks a bunch. Today is The Tenant by Roland Topor. Roland Topor was a French illustrator, actor, and author who was in the Panic group, this thing he created with Alejandro Jodorowsky and a fellow named Fernando Arrabal, who I've never heard of him before. And it was like surrealist performance art involving all kinds of crazy shit, of course, knowing these two. It was inspired by Louis Buñuel and Antonin Artaud's Theater of Cruelty, so there you go. Topor has a hell of a look, very iconic. I think the lead singer of the Tiger Lilies probably took some notes from him. In fact, if you're a fan of that band, I think you'll love this book. Topor also co-wrote the animated film Fantastic Planet, which I haven't seen, but I think I've read is really, really good. The Tenant, of course, was adapted into a highly reviewed horror film by Roman Polanski. It's fine, but this is far better, I imagine, if you haven't seen that film, as one of the greatest parts of the book is the ending, of course, which unfortunately, since I'd seen the film already, I kind of knew what was coming. But so if you haven't seen it, then that's all the better. You can watch it afterwards. It's a great film, but the effectiveness of the story really operates on that surprise ending. It's cool. It's all reflective. You can actually you can see yourself. The book is a mirror. That's completely intentional. This is a horrifying story about what happens when a man is changed, manipulated, and transformed by a collective group of people with ulterior motives into something unrecognizable to himself and others, into a different creature altogether. When he's driven insane, slowly realizing he's changing, but unable to stop it. It's Halloween time, so I thought this would be the perfect book to review. The book seems to say that not only can we never fully trust anybody around us, but sometimes we can't even trust ourselves. Everybody in the story behaves in a way that is almost understandable. We don't ever quite reach the level of normal in the neighbor's behavior, or his friends, or his landlord, or his lover. Everything is just slightly off. And that's the magnificent thing about Topor. He injects this kind of very subtle absurdity into all of the events and characters. Like Robert Aickman's stories, they're just a little off. But this is far more accessible and readable than Aickman, I'd say, who tends to be sophisticated to a fault in his writings. They're kind of boring, but at the same time, that's also why they are in some parts very eerie. Topor is far more in the category of somebody like Lovecraft, or maybe Cortázar, or if you want a more recent example, Thomas Ligotti, without the overwhelming sense of depression, I suppose, with maybe a better sense of humor. So this was published in 1964 under a different title. The French title is Le Locataire Chimérique, the Chimeric Tenant. There's a weird, odd kind of whimsicality to Topor. Or maybe it's just his eyebrows and the fact that I can't picture him outside of Werner Herzog's Nosferatu, because he played Renfield in that movie. Quite well, I might add, as this absolutely cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs sycophant to Klaus Kinski's bald, lurking annoyance. I've linked to it below. It's a great film if you haven't seen it. And now that I think about it, Mina in Nosferatu was played by Isabella Gianni. And she also plays Stella in the film adaptation of The Tenant. The question of identity, trying to discover the thing about oneself that actually separates one from the horde, as that identity is usurped by another. The idea that distinguishes one from the others, the memory of oneself that stands out in the sea of human history, is very similar in some ways to Luigi Pirandello's work, like One, No One, and 100,000. That's one of the most disturbing things about the book for me, is this focus on identity and identity shifting. This form that you've constructed being broken down bit by bit and being controlled by others and something that is not you. This is a psychological, absurd horror novel. I have to find myself again, he kept telling himself. What was there that was uniquely his, that made him an individual? What was there that differentiated him from everyone else? What was his label, his point of reference? What was it that made him think, this is me, or that's not really me? He sought the answers in vain and was forced to admit at last that he didn't know. So here's the plot. In this book, a young professional named Cholkovsky finds this apartment for rent and learns that the previous tenant, or current tenant technically, tried to kill herself by leaping off the balcony and crashing through a glass ceiling next to the courtyard below. He visits her in the hospital and discovers that she's bandaged from head to toe, like a mummy, with very few of her features visible. While he's saddened by this, he's not a monster, he's also wondering about the opportunity to secure this apartment below the asking price, which, after she dies, he does. In the hospital, at the same time he goes to see her, he meets a friend of hers, one of her best friends, who he begins having a casual erotic relationship with. So he gets this apartment and inherits the previous tenant's furniture. Initially thrilled to be in it, he has a housewarming party, and his friends and coworkers make a lot of noise and upset the neighbors. He gets a very stern talking to from the landlord. We've all been in that situation, I imagine. But all of a sudden he transforms, almost all at once it seems, into this very timid, paranoid man. Like he's still nervous after the party and everything. He's still nervous at work, he's nervous everywhere. He's deathly afraid that he's going to upset his neighbors and they'll start banging on his wall or floor and he'll lose his apartment. He becomes obsessed. He becomes terrified. He buys slippers and everything. And this just gets worse and worse and worse. And he starts to become increasingly paranoid that his neighbors, concierge, and landlord are all in on a plot to drive him insane. And he begins to suspect that the previous tenant herself was in fact driven insane to the point of committing suicide. It's a humorous, bizarre, dreamlike, surreal text, which moves forward in a kind of normal, matter-of-fact manner. It's not strange or non-linear. That's what I mean. It's a linear story. It's very simple to follow, but it's just these moments of disturbing weirdness. Everything's fine and understandable to a point, but then, he'll move a closet and he'll find a tooth in the wall, right? Stuff like that. Just disturbing. Things that just don't make sense, neither to the protagonist or to us. So Topor's always kind of keeping us off balance, wondering, where is this going? It's kind of like a Terry Gilliam film at some moments. You never know if what he's seeing is real or not, if it has some kind of significance, or just kind of the genuinely fucked up experience of living in the world next to weird people. It also reminded me of one of my favorite films, another film with Isabelle Adjani and Sam Neill. It's my favorite horror film next to The Wicker Man, the original one with Christopher Lee. It's called Possession by Andrzej Zulawski. Andrzej Zulawski, I can't even pronounce his name. Andrzej Zulawski, a director who I'm really impressed by. This one kind of has the same vibe. It takes place in these apartment buildings in the early 80s. I think it was shot in Berlin, so you can imagine that time. It's about divorce. It's about a woman having a breakdown and becoming possessed by something. It's never clear exactly what. Some kind of hideous creature which could be a manifestation of... God only knows. There's a similar thing at play here. It's a possession of a man by this ghost for what reason we don't really know. He begins changing gradually, adopting the habits of the woman who died, who lived there. Small things, like what he has for breakfast in a cafe and his brand of cigarettes. He starts spending some time around the apartment with himself, experimenting with his wardrobe. Would you fuck me? The Tenant is horrifying in a way that is not trying hard. It doesn't need to. The idea is simple and effective. It's a ghost story and a tale of madness. It's Poe and Lovecraft, but quieter. Until the end, which is as much of a deafening crescendo of absurd horror as any of us could wish for. Deeply eerie and internal, and some moments are just pure flat-out horror. Particularly when he sees the woman in the bathroom from his window. Deeply creepy. Very, very disturbing. I think the idea of this stifling social peer pressure to conform to certain manners or expectations is brilliantly displayed in this book, with Trelkovsky's increasing paranoia at what his neighbors will think and the threat of losing his apartment. It really captures the most horrifying situation of living in a place with other people who you quickly come to realize are absolutely not only cruel and evil, but batshit insane. And we're never really told why. Also an excellent thing I love about this story. It reminds me of Hitchcock's The Birds. It's like, why do the birds start attacking people? Nobody knows. Doesn't matter. Why are all of Trelkovsky's neighbors trying to murder him? Doesn't matter. It's happening. That's like real life. Increasingly, things become so outrageous that we start to wonder if it's just all in his head, if he's in fact just losing it for whatever reason. And we're not sure where we stand in reality. Are we in a dream, the normal world, his insane hallucinations, or some strange mixture of all three? Don't know. Better Than Food. Classic, perfectly absurd horror literature. Definitely for those who are into magical realism. Lovecraft, Cortázar maybe, Pirandello, Borges, Witold Gombrowicz and Bruno Schulz. Kafka too, and Thomas Ligotti, and of course the films of Polanski and Jodorowsky. So what one might ask is, where does all this come from for Topor, out of Topor, right? This is a very interesting question. Who on earth would try and kill their tenants? The French, of course. No, I'm joking, but not really. Well, there's a dark story behind this. Wikipedia put it up on here, on the page, for his biography, but it didn't make this connection. It didn't explicitly say that one was inspired by this story in his life. This is my theory. This must be the reason for the idea. It has to be based off of Topor's real life. I mean, it can't be a coincidence. According to Wikipedia, he actually almost was murdered by a landlady of his when he was a child. I'll explain. Topor was Jewish, and his family were refugees from Warsaw. His dad was arrested and put in a camp and escaped. And I think he was one of the very, very few to be sent to that camp who lived. So back in France, I think it's Paris. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's Paris. It's Nazi-occupied France, Vichy government. Topor's dad was hiding out, and the landlady of the building that Topor and his mother and sister were living in tried to get Roland and his sister to give her the location of their father. They didn't give it. A neighbor later informed them, the family, the Topor family, that the building was going to be searched by the French police and the Gestapo. The French police were in cahoots with the Nazis after all at this time. So Roland and his family escaped, and he was hidden in Savoy and given a different name. So yes, I'd say that landlady was trying to kill them. They sued her later after the war. Hell of a thing. But imagine being told that growing older, right? So if I were to make a guess, I'd say in part that's where the idea for the Tenant comes from. So be nice to your neighbors. Just don't ever trust them. Coffee time. For those of you who are new, welcome. Thanks for watching. I take the names of all the patrons on Patreon who have donated $5 or more per video to the show. I place their names in this mason jar, and for every review I do, I pull out a name. And whoever's name I pull out, they are sent a hard copy of the book I'm reviewing, plus a bag of coffee, normally roasted by yours truly, but since the lockdown and pandemic, roasted by one of the wonderful roasters here in Portland, Oregon. And the coffee is terrific, marvelous, delicious. It helps with safety too. So there you go. If you would like to get in on that, you can head over to patreon.com/booksofbettherthanfood and donate $5 or more per video. $1 or more will get you access to the Patreon-only reviews, the Discord channel, which is fucking awesome, I gotta say. People are posting amazing recommendations of music, books, films, all kinds of shit over there. It's fantastic. And the Better Than Friday newsletter, which if that's just 5 different things I'm interested in at any given time, could be books, films, articles, music. It changes week to week. If you think we have similar taste, I think you'll get a lot of value out of both of those things, the Discord channel and the newsletter. So that's just for $1 or more per video. Just one. It's a pretty good deal, in my opinion. The link is below if you'd like to get in on that, or you can go to patreon.com/booksofbettherthanfood and donate an amount of your choice. I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you. Unfortunately, international shipping is not included. Thank you very much to all the patrons and best of luck. All right, here we go. Oh, Juan P. Thanks a bunch, Juan. Really appreciate it. You're going to receive The Tenant by Roland Topor, plus a bag of delicious coffee. Unfortunately, I'm going to send you a different copy of The Tenant. This copy is actually rare, but there's another one being published in early November, so that will be on its way to you ASAP. And I hope you enjoy very much. All right, please subscribe if you haven't already. Please hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed this. Helps the algorithm do things. Should you want to support the show this Halloween by getting a mug, the link is below. Thanks a bunch. Please always remember, bring a book wherever you go. You never know when you'll have 5 or 10 minutes to sit and read, and pretty soon you'll be reading more books and recommending them, and the world might be a little bit of a better place. Yeah. Hang in there. Great to see you as always. Take care of yourselves. Have a good night. Talk to you soon. Happy Halloween. Ciao.